Wow. Yeah, no, my brain just did not remember this in the slightest.
Hey, it's perfectly fine.
I was out here watching anime. I want you to realize, because I was watching anime while playing Rivals, and it's an anime I've been watching with a friend, so I've like edged myself where there's literally one episode left in the goddamn anime. Before I want you to realize that's how much it means for me to be here. I'm like, you know what? I'll hold off. I'll hold off on the final episode just to make sure I'm here for the podcast.
What show is it, Megalass?
Kaguya-sama, what those were.
Oh, good pick.
Classic.
I'm the only person who does not know what that is here.
Ye-
I feel left out.
That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
We've had this
They
conversation
needed-
before. I want
they
to
needed
watch
NASCAR
anime, but it's just like I don't have the time.
Don't worry, they'll make a NASCAR anime for you soon,
They
buddy.
don't. No.
It already
happened. It's called Cars.
It came out last year. It was called what was it? MF Ghost? Is that what it was called? Or am I thinking of something else?
I have no idea what the hell you're on about.
Yeah, it was MF Ghost. It's a racing show.
There's also like
Fucking
Overtake.
Speed Racer.
Yeah, Overtake. That's what I was thinking about. Yes.
No, Speed Racer. That's the fucking NASCAR anime.
Also, I try to find something cool in my collection, but as it turns out, most of mine are just generic games that aren't unique at all. But I do have the original Dragon Ball Budokai on the GameCube.
Jesus.
Oh, okay, now I'm
That's
jealous.
what I got. That's something I found.
I moved the box away from me. I'm not going to be able to pick it up anymore.
Also, didn't realize how many Fable games I have sitting by.
Jeez. Isn't there only like 3?
Technically, there's more than 3. It depends if you include the anniversary and like the Lost Chapter stuff, which I didn't know I owned the Lost Chapters. I'm like, when did I get this thing? I never played it. Apparently, it's just a shit DLC though.
You know what? I'm happy I hit record the moment you sat back down, Hunter.
Cheers to terrible DLCs, ladies and gentlemen.
My goodness.
That's every DLC. There's only a couple good DLCs. Let's be fair.
There's some great DLCs out there. Unfortunately, they all cost money. Well, not all of them. Most of them.
Most of them. But everyone, welcome back to For the Love of Prod, episode 9. Haven't ran down this time. Checked my notes before we started that, so I'm not going to make that mistake again, hopefully. As always, I am joined by Huntertain and Megalass, and this week we are pleased to be joined by UserIntel. User, man, how you been? I feel like it's been a while since me and you have talked.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely been a while, but I've been good, mostly just extremely busy editing, stuff like that.
Yeah, and we'll get into that here very, very soon here, just with the normal 2 questions we ask here. But, I mean, I met you when you were casting more. And that's going to be, again, going to be a part of the questions that we end up asking here. But, like, I knew you mostly from that, but what you've been doing with editing has been insanely fun to watch. And it's going to be something really interesting to talk with you about here. But, as always, we ask the same 2 questions with every guest that comes on. The first one is, User, what got you into doing just esports stuff?
So, as most people, this was during the quarantine where like COVID was hitting, everyone was staying home and shutting down, and I had nothing to do. I kind of already gave up on school. I'm not studious at all. I had given up years ago for many reasons, and so I had already like started to compete in League Zero. I was trying it out. I was having a lot of fun. Then Acronator needed a caster for a simple game. I was so sick of the really bad casters at the time. I think it was a match on Temple of Anubis. People were just like, yeah. And I was so irritated. I was like, you know what? I talk a lot. I can do this easier. I went on. It was just me. I think my other caster had crashed. And so I was making car noises the entire time. And then after that, I was like, oh my God, I love casting. And that's how I got into casting. That's how I got into esports eventually of like, oh, I want to do this. And then that eventually translated to editing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you're one of the people that came in here and said like, I can be a better caster than what I'm currently watching. And you actually go out there and do it. A lot of the times people will say that, but they won't actually ever do casting. They'll just say like, that I just don't want to do it. I can do it better, but nah, it's not for me, sort of thing. So it's always cool when there are casters who like, I feel like I can do it better. And then they do it, figure out they love it. It's like, yeah, I could do it way better than them, and this is something I'm very like you get very passionate about. Hunter and Mega, I know we've talked about it in the past, but I forget Hunter. No, which one of you guys was? It was something similar.
Uh, I I think that relates more to me. Megalass can obviously
No, I think it's you.
but I'm pretty sure that's me. Me trying to remember my own past. Wow.
Hey, Alzheimer's gets us all in the end.
Oh, I've already forgotten so many things. But yeah,
What's your
the
name?
same way. My name? What? Shoot. It's on here. It's on this plaque where I won a championship, ladies and gentlemen. This was when I don't have a green screen on. But no, it was the same way. I watching people cast, and I'm like, man, this doesn't seem right. I bet I could do better than this. And it turns out, well, I might have been right. I might have been wrong. That's to other people's ears because I could not tell you. But either way, it was for that reason. And now I've pursued this for coming up to 7 years. God help me.
Welcome to the esports retirement home. Once you get past 5 years, man, just your unk status. Once you get to fucking 10, it's how are you still alive?
Yet my unk years have been my most successful years. I don't know how that's the case.
That's the case in
somehow
real life,
gone
though.
down that way.
That's the case in real life, though, with a lot of people. They're unk years when they finally figured everything out, and they're like, "Oh wait, everything's starting to go actually go correctly."
If I only knew this when I was 21, life it's so much easier.
Yeah, but I mean, user. So that's what got you in here. What really got you started with editing, though? Like, I remember that there was the shift where you were really focusing on not doing casting anymore, but wanted to do editing because you found it. When did you kind of decide like that's what you wanted to, follow or do with esports?
So I remember this exact moment because it was a very difficult moment for me, where I was I've always been an editor. I've been an editor since I was little, making like Sonic sprite animations on Movie Maker, which is like my most those videos no longer exist ever. But I'd always had the passion. So even while I was casting, I was practicing my editing, and just seeing what I liked, and it was always fun. But then there was a time where I finished school and I had to get a job. So I was casting on the side and working, and it was nice. But then I think I had the opportunity of editing with some friends for a small project. I forget what it was exactly, but I really enjoyed it, and I found it a lot more flexible. I found it a lot more courageous, and then I picked up a casting gig, and I just did terribly. I made comments that I aren't meant to be on air, and at that moment I was like, I'm slipping. I haven't taken a break on casting. I'll take a break. I'll see what I have to do. Maybe I'll try getting some editing gigs. Edited a bit with League Zero, and Tranquility was like, I feel back more in my element. I feel more in control, and then I kind of just stuck with it after that because I just didn't have the time to consistently cast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, already name dropped 2 dead community run tournaments here. League Zero, I mean, they've tried making multiple comebacks. I'll give them credit. I don't think Trank's ever coming back, but I mean, yeah, like I think I'm almost kind of the same thing with you there, where you took a break from casting to do something else. I really thought if I ever take a break, if I ever publicly say like, "Hey, I'm taking a break," yeah, you're never seeing me cast again. Like I'm gonna go do something else for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, and I'm just gonna enjoy that a lot more and never come back. Like I've already kind of like internalized that. Like if I take a break, yeah, hey, it was nice knowing you guys, but I'm out. I'll fade away. But so you're doing editing now, and you worked with a couple orgs, and like you said, you worked with a couple leagues. I imagine that is part of the reason why it's something you keep coming back to, especially in the esports field.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's something about, because when you're casting, you're telling the story of the org, of the player, of the team in the moment. But there's something about being able to tell them after and before that I've really gotten to enjoy, and especially because a lot of the times it's where I'm just running a socials, maybe I'm editing a meme or two, but a part of that is still the org, it's the history. When people are looking back, that's something that where maybe a player footage is going to be grabbed from, and that's something I find like so much excitement.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, it's casters are telling the story of in the game, but you're trying to tell the full story of everything going on around the entire team, around the entire league, which is something very important. I think it's a lot of things that it's one of those things that a lot of people kind of overlook because I mean, if you're scrolling on like Twitter, Blue Sky, or whatever the other ones are, Instagram, it's just like, hey, you see it there for a brief moment, you'll watch it. It's like, okay, but then there's another thing that kind of catches your eye. But it's very important to be able to tell like the kind of whole story. And I mean, you did this a little bit last season with CGL with lowlights, even though it wasn't necessarily like, oh yeah, like here's the entire story of everything. We're kind of picking and choosing some bad plays, but still though, I think of some of those times those players are like, oh cool, we're getting recognized, even though it's not necessarily the best thing.
Yeah, I mean that was also just funny because I remember Headrammer just messaging me like, "Hey, do you want to work on this series, lowlights? We're just gonna be highlighting some bad moments with leg day." I was like, "This seems amazing," and then I just started editing it, and it was it was really fun.
Yeah, like I think some of the funniest ones probably definitely came during that staff pugs.
Absolutely.
Like I imagine there's probably I have to imagine there's at least 30 minutes of just outtakes or stuff that just didn't make the air because there were some horrible plays.
Yeah, there's just some plays. Because like they only did I think 6 or 7 maps, so he didn't actually do all of them. But there's just moments where he's just like making fun of people, and I'm like, this might be seem too mean. I cannot air this.
I feel like in that situation, I feel like we would all get it. Like, we already knew going into that yeah, we're gonna have an entire lowlights from this entire experience.
I made sure because I was only in one map because I had work literally like after the game. So I was like, hey, I'm gonna go put me in the first game. I made sure to just do one lowlights moment, which was a Lucio beat where none of my team was around me. And like they just spent I think about 2 minutes ripping into me in like the first intro.
I remember my one that I think ended up making the clip there was Volskaya, the 6 Winstons, making the jump from spawn to the left side, and I was the only one who made it. God. But there was like I think Hunter, Mega, and I think Joker was there for what I considered probably be the one I thought that would get taken was my horrible play on Surabasa.
Yeah, that map was never recorded.
Oh, damn.
I'm trying to remind
Well, yeah, because that happened after the stream went off.
No, Surabasa was the last map streamed.
Remind me what happened, honestly, because
I was playing so bad. I was just swapping from hero to hero. And I think it was like me on Cassidy. And it's like, oh yeah, I got a kill, then I immediately pop Deadeye. Don't find a single kill, but do damage to it, and I immediately die right after it.
I feel like I do remember this.
And
because then I look and I'm like, Dex, they're not there anymore.
Yeah, no, one of you guys fucking just ripped into me for playing bad.
Low key, well, it probably wasn't me, but I could have seen it being me as well.
I know for a fact it was not me, because like that entire day, the only person I like even jokingly flamed was Pearson Headrammer.
Hey,
like that was my entire goal.
Hey,
and
no, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I just remember my moment immediately right at the start. My Reaper Blossoms were just too powerful. Listen, it was great.
Hey, you don't have to jokingly flame Pearson Headrammer. You can just flame them.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I think the only person I ever flamed was Joker. But to be fair,
another person you can honestly flame.
He did steal my 6K during GOAT, so I feel like it's very heavily deserved. And then bro gets on, what was it, a new punter, and it's his thing and not mine. It was my 5K.
I remember sitting in the call while that game was going on, and that play happened. It was like, hey, we have to go back after this one here. That's a good still image that we can get for like the like, hey, we're coming back to stream something.
we
Mhm.
multiple still images were taken because there were multiple good things for it, and I've never seen any of them been used before, and I just assume that they are sitting in Echo's just files somewhere, just collecting dust.
Echoes are hippies. It depends
It,
who gets those still frames.
I bet it was Echo. I bet.
I mean, they were both there.
That's fair.
You know, coming off the Will episode where we were so on topic, it's just absolutely
It's
just
gone.
a
Yeah.
it's such a switch. It's such a
Hey.
switch up here.
Hey, I'm perfectly fine with that. Like every week,
Yeah, me
we have the 2 questions, and then I always say where we go from there. No one knows, but man,
But what's crazy is you haven't gotten to one question yet.
I got to both questions.
Wait,
He
did
has
you?
that.
Yes.
He did ask both questions. Yeah.
Oh, I've been zoned the fuck out, I guess. Jeez. Well, now I look silly.
I know. I was gonna try to bring it to you because I could tell like you haven't said anything in a little bit. I want to get you back in. But no, like again, this entire podcast, it's all just about fun, telling the stories you want to kind of tell, why you keep on coming back to do esports production, just work in esports in general. So like, it's always a thing. Like, different people are gonna have different things. Will last week was good because we asked a question, the man had a if we didn't stop him to ask other questions, he could keep going and going and going, and that was great. Then we had I'll go back to the Knock episode. Knock brought stuff to talk about. He brought photos. He hijacked the podcast. and he was sitting there explaining everything that was everything that was important, how his stream deck was set up, and I like that episode because it's something where it's like, hey, you can tell he's passionate about this. He's sitting here
but
and
you should call him a dork anyway.
I mean, Knox, and he knows. He knows. Trust me. Knob on wood knows. Okay, but I mean, user, let's bring it back to you now. So, I mean, you say you get started just editing because it was a little bit of something that it gave you more flexibility, more time to just probably do other stuff as well. What was the first outside of let's say outside of League Zero and some of these community ran leagues, what was the first team or just event that you actively worked with for their editing?
It would. Okay, so technically outside of it, because it counts. Marsupial Gaming.
Mm-hmm.
I was good friends with Navino. I was already a coach and player on his team, so he had brought me on. Was like, hey, if you want, you can run our socials. So I did editing there. And then I, what is it? Back during OWL, the Philadelphia Fusion had put in job applications in, and I still had the rejection email, but I was almost invited into interviews, and I will always hold that. And then literally after that moment, I believe it was some tier 3 org. I think it was might have been Shikigami. I joined Shikigami, and we just started doing editing, and that was the first org where I really got to get a taste of what expectations, editing, and all that, which was really funny because I did not end up staying on Shikigami for too long because I think I immediately got another offer from a friend org, and I was like, oh, my friends are there, I'm gonna go join there because Shikigami's having a lot of changes. I mean, right now Shikigami's doing amazing with everything that they're going on, so all love to them. But I remember I just left and started doing other orgs, and I remember I hopped from org to org, and then I joined one. It was Title Esports, I think it was called, where they had applications for a content director, and I was like, you know what, that's a big step. I want to do that. I joined them, and that was my org for a couple months, where I was making content, posting, getting the concept of shorts, getting that idea, getting that kind of feeling. Then I got added on to, if I remember correctly, it was the World Cup. World Cup happened after that. It was Overwatch Puerto Rico. I had gotten on the team as an editor, and I was just running the TikTok. I was just hard pumped, boom, 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 while Moncolo was running everything else, and I was just going crazy. That was like a big step for me. That was like, oh my god, I love this. I can. Oh boy, and I got that high. Then Nyx picked me up after that because of it. Because of Nyx, I got onto YFP. Uh, because of YFP, I got onto ExO Oblivion, which is where I've been for like actually considerably the longest time I've ever been with an org, which is good to me, but also surprising because admittedly, I'm a bit of an org hopper. If I get a better opportunity, if someone just says, "Hey, we'll pay you 5 more cents more than the other place," I was like, "Yo, let's get it! I'm ready to work." 'Cause that's why I left YFP originally. EXO had offered payment while YFP at the time couldn't. Now, and also there was some like other stuff going on where like I just wasn't feeling right for YFP. So I had left it, joined EXO, and was getting paid at the time. And I felt on top of the world. I was like, yes. And that's essentially like how like that's kind of like the miniature timeline, excluding all the like random orgs I joined, like Insidia at one point, which dropped me, which like collapsed a weekend. And I've only if I had a nickel for like every org that dropped after I joined it, I'd have 2 nickels. Which is Shoes Money Crew and Insidia, because they only lasted maybe like a week after they had signed content people to be like, hey guys, let's get to work.
Yeah. Oh, man. I'm sorry. Fucking Headrunner posted a picture of what I'm assuming is Hippie playing.
No, that's Hippie.
Yeah.
That is definitely hip.
Completely distracted. That has. I hope that's recent. I hope that photo's
That's gotta
recent.
be.
Here, just so let me get this entire thing. Just so everyone can see what the photo is. Let's see if this scene is working. Nope, it is not. Because it hates me. Here we go.
Yeah, that's Hippie.
Yeah, that's Hippie.
Yep.
Now,
Yeah.
You can tell.
like I'll say this: the first time I met Hippie, I'm always surprised by how tall people are.
That's how I felt with Joker. I never thought that Joker would ever be a tall man. He's huge. When I got to first meet him, I think at Dallas. Not Dallas, it was a different event.
I don't think he was at Dallas because the first time I met him was in Stockholm.
Yeah, I think that was no. The first time I met him was in a
No,
Stockholm.
he was at Dallas.
Was he?
He had because like
Max
next
Dallas,
to Fletch,
yeah.
next to Fletch in half the pictures you see him there. He's got like
Oh
a
yeah,
gray like
God,
hat on.
I'm a dumbass. Yeah, because I'm just out of frame with those photos as well. God.
I remember going to the event so salty because EXO had we had lost our game to get in there, and I just felt I was going in as just a solo. I was walking up to every soldier person yeah, I'm a part of EXO. We didn't make it.
EXO is the one that has the VTuber, right?
Yeah, that was my project.
Yeah.
EXO
I got
fan,
beef
right?
with EXO. I got beef with EXO then.
Yeah, that's actually
Incorporating a VTuber and you didn't hit up the VTuber caster.
Oh my god. That's actually really funny. So the reason why we did it was I was really tired one day. I'd stood up to finish a big project. It was 6 in the morning. And they were just talking, they were joking around in chat. They're like, hey, yeah, what if we had a mascot? So I texted my girlfriend and I was like, because my girlfriend's an artist. She draws basically, if you ever see me, my Twitter icons or anything, that's drawn by her. And so I was like, hey, draw an anime version of this mascot. She does not play Overwatch. She does not know what EXO is. She knows I do editing for orgs. She watched the streams and all that, but she had no idea the context. So she makes it, I send it, and they're like, that's a great idea. They started loving it, and then I just shoved it in. I just harassed Cavo to post it, and then it got posted, and then it got on Reddit, and I laughed all my way. Because it was it was never meant to be such a big thing, but now it is, and I wanted to do more with it. But I think we put it on pause, and everyone just forgot about it at one point. Because I know we planned to contact a bunch of VTubers for a project like that.
Here, wait, I'm trying to find an image of it that I can pull up.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
but anyway, so yeah, I have
Here.
beef with your org, buddy.
Yeah.
I'll be talking to the manager.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man.
Stole my whole flow.
we I, I remember just laughing my tail because we called her ExO-chan.
Mhm.
Not for any logistic reason. I couldn't think of a name. So we just made a meme of like, oh my god, Chan, anime, ExO-chan, kawaii desu. That was the joke. And then some people just found it weird that we called her ExO-chan. I was like, it's kind of the joke, which is why she's called Any now. Though the org will never recognize Any. They'll just call her ExO-chan, which I find even funnier.
Does he wait? I haven't seen EXO post anything with her in a while. Do they still?
Yeah, she was posted for today on St. Patrick's Day.
Oh shit!
They kind of just use her as like an avatar with like kind of just like, hey, we have a cute anime girl at this time. There's been a lot of reconstruction going on, so I'm not like privy to their to our Illustrator channels anymore. They've hid me from the power.
Oh.
So I don't know anymore. Anything that comes out with like drawings or such, that's all of them now.
What the fuck? Yeah. So one thing I want to ask you about that, you're an editor, you do all this stuff with all these orgs. What is it like? You talked about here. You have ideas. You kind of force them sometimes. So what is it like to come to like whoever you kind of have to go to with any of your ideas? Like, I have this really good idea. I already have it like 90% like formed up. What's the kind of thought process with that? Or no, not the thought process, but what happens when they kind of say like, we don't necessarily know what we want if we want to do something like that?
So that's always difficult because I've never run into a situation where I've had an idea like prepped and the org immediately goes no. If I have the idea, a lot of the times an org will just push it through. There's very little like dancing around when you get to that stage of the idea. It's either immediately rejected or it's accepted and you get to go through the phase. Especially because I get hired a lot as more of just the independent short form editor, meaning that they're hiring me, I'm running the TikTok, and they're just not paying attention to me. If they need something else edited, they'll message me, they'll ping me, but that's it. However, there were times where we were in a project, we were like halfway through, we were going, and that project just gets snapped, canceled after like weeks of editing, review, and it's always a very frustrating deal when it goes to that. I don't know how I'd feel in a moment if like I had like this big grandioso project and everyone's like, oh no, because I think I'd be a little disheartened. I'm very passionate with what I do, so if I come up with an idea, it's something that I'm gonna do. But in other moments I've just been like frustrated if a project gets canceled midway through.
Yeah, and like I can relate to that in a little bit because back when I was with my back when I was in school with my college's esports team, like we had a whole pro team. It was like 4 people, but we would come up with ideas and ideas how to do stuff, ideas how to get the players out there or recognized a little bit more, and it would always be like, okay, we've been given the green light, let's go do it, and either we couldn't get players or the person who came up with the idea was just like, yeah, I don't want to do it anymore. Which I'm like, then why even bring it up? Like,
Why even approve it?
Yeah, I mean, hell, to be fair, any idea we had was almost given the go ahead, just because the program manager or the program not manager but leader essentially just said, hey, we want to do more, just go do stuff. A little bit different from what you, but again, it's just like having ideas, not having them come to fruition for one way or another there. I'm trying to think here. So with editing, and it sounds like a lot of the time when you're doing it, you're kind of running, are you, just so I'm not getting this wrong, when you're doing this editing, are you also at the same time like running the social media page?
I'm running anything that's like quick formats. So you'll never see me run a Twitter page ever in your life because there will be spelling mistakes. I'm someone who does not think before they post. And I get in trouble. I don't get in trouble necessarily, but I get like heads up from my physical job, which I work at localhost Philly. So sometimes I'll tweet out a venue picture and they'll be like, hey, we want to retweet this, but you posted a picture and nobody's in it. It is an empty venue, and you are saying how amazing this event is. Or it's like, hey, this is the wrong game, spelling mistake. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. So, and then I have to repost it or I don't. Um, but more often than not, like if it's EXO, YFP, or anyone, it's always going to be I'm running the TikTok, I'm running the YouTube or YouTube Shorts. Anything that gets me not to like be a brand you're safe with.
Yeah, and that's interesting. But one thing I want to kind of bring this up, especially with having you right after we had Will, who talked about the love of LAN centers and the fact that this is the second one you worked at, right? You worked at another
Yeah,
one before.
I worked at Belong Gaming in King of Prussia. I was the assistant manager actually. I had been promoted about 2 weeks maybe before, maybe a week before. We had also brought on Gusty from Alvernia, who's a player. I had got him hired onto the job, so it was literally me and him. We were happy. It was like a week, and then we shut down, and I was so depressed. So I've worked 2 LAN centers.
What is it like really working on one of those? Because I imagine there are times where it's very slow and times where it's insanely busy. And a lot of times, like you just said, you're posting, photos and stuff of like stuff that's going on there and stuff that's really interesting. Like, like every now and then you'll make a post like of people actually using the entire stage setup you have there, which I think is still one of
Yeah.
the more insane things that a LAN center could have.
Yeah. So I'll speak more on like local host because I think that it basically translates into what I did at Belong. But Belong was very different because we worked at a mall. So it was less of a competitive. It was more of like teenagers and mothers just dropping off their kids. We didn't have a stage. We did run events, but we didn't have a stage or anything. So everything was a lot less interesting. But when it goes to localhost, um, people always think we're going to be packed. People always think like, oh, it's a gaming center. People want to play games, but that's not really how the scene is in Philly or rather in anywhere. So a lot of the times we maybe have 6 people in the venue playing on, and then more on a good day. It's mostly like people who just want to play, people who are a little bit competitors getting practice in, temple students, or the occasional like random kid that comes in, and it's very fun. But then there's times where my manager will come up and be like, "Hey, we're running an event. We're running an we run an FGC event called Go for Broke every once in a while. I'll get a heads up a note about that. We'll run Max, Valorant, Overwatch things, and so that's when we get busy. That's when basically all hands are on deck. We're making sure cameras are working, we're making sure stages, we're testing computers, we're replacing whatever we have to, and it's a very quick moment the second we get busy because we don't have the fortitude to like give up a moment. So it's, hey, the audio's not working on stage. It's all right. We know we've been through this before. We know what to do. Bam. The only like downside to it is people are always going to ask you the dumbest questions that you think like they would know the answer for. I've had scenarios where people are trying to log into the computers. You have to set up an account. One of the rules when you set up an account is you don't have a password. Just put your email in. People will just sit there, type a password in, like, it's not working. And then they get to make a password, and it's, well, what do we do? And that's just the fun part. The benefits, at least working at the LAN Center, is a lot of the times we get third parties, meaning, like, the only times I ever get to cast again is because Drexel University runs events at Locos, will basically buy out the whole venue. They're amazing. And Unfeatured or Zoomy will text me and say, hey, do you want to cast our Overwatch event? And I'll go, yeah, absolutely. Mind you, the only times I've casted for Drexel, I've been terribly sick. So I think they've cursed me both times. And there's footage on this where I went to Drexel to cast and I was dying sick, coughing. And they came to localhost and I was dying sick, coughing. So I blame them for both of those situations. But I absolutely love working at a LAN center. I get to relax a lot of the time. We're very free open because there's not a lot of customers more often than not. But when we get that LAN event, when we get to plan and prep, especially because as an employee, I get to run my own events. I run a bunch of Pokemon stuff. I've been slacking on it. Or I get to propose ideas. So more often than not, if to give an example for Max, the collegiate event that we run, I have recommended not only Hippie as running our prod and other Drexel students, but I've recommended a bunch of casters I know, like, hey, I know this caster. They would be happy to do this. They would be doing this for like this much, like a fair rating per map and such.
Yeah.
And then we don't always get to go that far, or it's always a head in the air. But I feel like I get the better opportunity to get people like down here, get that LAN experience, and that's something like, at least for me working down there, that's always what I'm achieving for.
Yeah. Quick sidebar. If you ever do a Pokemon event again, try to get Mega in. I think she's been trying to cast some Pokemon stuff, right, Mega?
Well, I used to do a lot of Pokemon casts. I kind of like not like grew out of it. It's just it's harder to find work in the space. But
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
My experience, VGC casting is on such a LAN level and low level because
Yep.
not a many. We don't always want to run a prod or anything. However, I do know a guy. I will forward them to you. In the tri-state area, starting to run. He's trying to get a bunch of casters and start getting a sense. I put to try hard Ray over to him, so I'll push him to you too.
Also, I'd like to point out that this is the second time that you accidentally backhanded me when you were talking about how Drexel makes you sick, because Drexel is my Aurora team. So this is just Intel dunking on me off cooldown.
I mean, it's always it's always accidental because also you were the person with the most lowlights in the in the prod lowlights, and I felt so bad.
All right, you heard it here first. UserIntel hates virtual women. Go ahead and send that everywhere.
He created one.
He created one, but didn't hit up the VTuber caster to do anything with it. Criminal, actually diabolical. But you know what's crazy? As soon as there's an editing gig on Twitter that I see put out by VTubers, the first person I say is a good editor, UserIntel, immediately.
Well, I owe you one. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'll get you. I'll make it fair.
Sure. It's really funny because I went to pull up our DMs before this because I remember we had casted once or twice like back in the day, back when you were casted. And I thought that our DMs would be full of like you telling me things I did that were shit as a caster, and for some reason the only thing that's there is my battle tag being sent once, and so I was like, okay, I guess we just never did actually chat. I'm a liar.
No, we've casted in BPL like several times. I just don't talk to people.
I feel that.
Unless it's like for like a project I have where I'm immediately messaging people, I very rarely text people because I'm just so shy.
I'm just shy. It's like the image of like shy guy just chilling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now,
like, I just went back to look through the last thing that I talked with User about, and it was the lowlights. And then before that was the Sombra rework video that you did.
Yeah, that was actually really fun because a lot of the times me doing videos like that is because I'm burnt out and I need an experimental video to try, and I don't get to do that a lot with an org.
Yeah. Fun thing about that, she's since been reworked again, but I think I was spot on with what I thought would happen to Sombra, which wasn't much. Everyone else like, oh my god, she's gonna take over the game where she's completely dead. I was like, yeah, this doesn't change a lot.
Yeah, I love how much that narrative video relatively stands up into perspective of like what people still see Sombra as, because it's still a common notion of, oh, she's gonna be broken. Look at this, look at that, and then they added perks in, and now people are like, she's not doing anything.
Yeah, no, her perks aren't that good either.
No, her perks are terrible.
Her best perk is she can heal a tank. Like what is it supposed to do?
It's not.
It doesn't have to be a tank, but like it's just. Yeah.
And her two major perks are just considered nerfs. Like you're better off not picking them.
Yeah. It's just like I thought I'm gonna like before perks came out. And there was the last rework. Like I made the joke for like 2 or 3 weeks. Like yeah, she's dead. Sombra found dead in Miami, or something along those lines. But then you started actually seeing people play Sombra in like OWCS. Like oh wait no, Sombra's still incredibly strong. It just took people a week or two to figure it out. But getting back to like your work with orgs, how often when you're working with orgs, do you actually interact with the players on the team to try to get something like some sort of like short form content?
So, to answer that, I have to mention if you've probably seen very shady tweets on my account where I'm basically making fun of the fact that players don't make content with
Mhm.
orgs. I've made several of those posts, never directed at my players, but I can't admittedly say that out loud. They'll get upset. Anyways, I don't get to talk to them at all. A lot of the times, players are either separated from content because players don't want to do it. The org really wants to make them happy because these players are sometimes having to play for free or play for like dirt cheap, and they'll leave at a hat's notice because they want more money. So I think like the only time I've ever gotten to talk to my players was EXO's past roster, where I was able to talk to Prash directly, be able to like ask them for things and set them up for success. Then we dropped them, and I never felt more depressed in my life.
Yeah, and like that, like I never understand why players don't want to get themselves out there more because yeah, you're promoting the team, but you're also just promoting yourself, which
Yeah,
it's an insane thing. Like esports is the one level of competition where you don't see the competitors like try to go out there and promote themselves. They just want to stay. They just want to be a player, which I mean, I understand that to some point, but like if you promote yourself, you might be able to make some money on the side that's not just from playing the game.
I've told players this. I've gone on rants. I've made sheets. I've like pitched to players about how essential it is that you promote yourself as a player, not only the your own content sense, being a streamer, posting your own VODs, talking out loud, and doing interviews, but also interacting with your own org and doing things like that. I have brought up so many like leg day, lemon kiwi, a bunch of casters, and I'll be like, "Hey, look at these casters. Do you think they're good casters because of the way they talk? No. Some people have issues with lemon kiwi. Some people have issues with leg day. But these are casters who are out there who make their presence known, and they're tweeting. They're interacting. They're doing whatever they can to make a name for themselves and posting their own VODs and content. They're going to be picked up more than not solely because of name recognition, which is why there's a lot of great players out there who are tier one who maybe aren't like going to be in your top 10 always, but they are amazing at making content. They're loud, they're funny. Infected is by far one of my favorite players in Overwatch because he is loud, he is funny, he is ready to make a personality. Heidi is the same way as that, where these players are personalities second, and then they're players. And that's necessary, I think, to move forward. And then the people wonder why orgs aren't making any money, why esports is a place where money goes to die, is because you're not making any content. You're not making anything. And it absolutely sucks to see. And it's a rant that I will always go on that if you're looking to be a pro player, you need to look to be a personality. You need to be, I don't care if like you're shy to be on camera, you're going to be on camera. You're going to be playing in front of a stage full of thousands of people. Why are you scared of having to make a TikTok where you do a silly little like gritty dance or something?
I mean, hell, you're seeing it now with AI, and I hate even referencing it, but you're seeing people take a like a full body picture of a player and put it on to like what was it, Little Yachty coming out to a stage or performance.
Yeah, there was also that chess org.
Yeah. Like, but I'll say this, and going back to it, like players that were players first, personality second. Like I look at last year in OWCS PGE. I had never heard of the man before OWCS started, but he became the biggest personality in my opinion, and he barely ever played.
Oh, absolutely. And PGE is insane for that. One of my biggest examples I like to give is back during the Overwatch League. When you think of players, you think of the playmakers and you think of the personalities. Super succeeded after the end of Overwatch League, not because he's an amazing player and people like his how he plays, but because he is the funniest and weirdest guy you'll ever see play main tank. XQC, despite his controversies and many, many controversies, was a personality and a big one on the stage and outside of it, he managed to go through and make content out of it. And that's what you're always going to see is people like outspoken, people like weird, people like whatever they can get their hands on. They don't like quiet.
You bring up Super, and the first thing I immediately thought was, oh yeah, he cosplayed Tifa that one time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's a
That
I
dude
think
is a
chunk
hotter
of-
woman than I'll ever be. I'll say it.
Honestly, I agree, Megalass. I wish I could be that hot.
Here,
You know, I wish I had Super's confidence.
I'm looking this up. God damn it.
Dude, Super's
Go.
listen. Super is, but again, it's a perfect example of like players need to be willing to get out there, or if you're not gonna like market
How
yourself,
the fuck is it not?
then
a good
like
image?
at least have some logical backup plan. Like I think of Moth all the time, right? Like the dude showed up, played Overwatch, and then the second he was done, he was like, "All right, I'm just gonna go in IT and pretend Overwatch never happened," and that's what he's done, and it works for him. But like, there's players out here who truly have no thought, head empty, and they're just like, "All right, I'm playing Overwatch, and whatever happens, happens." Like, if you want to actually like build a name for yourself, like try to have some level of stability or hope in a future, like the easiest thing is to a become a personality. Because I promise you, if you're signed to an org, no org is going to say no. We do not want you to create content. Not a single. The like if an org says that to you, then the org is dumb. That is the best way to put it. They will gladly be like, whatever you want to do. You want to put up TikToks? Let's go for it. And just doesn't even matter. Just silly stuff people will love.
Oh, you absolutely hit the nail on it. And you'll see that, like, with any org. I think that's why you're starting to see a shift in illustrations. NTMR, for example, are doing a fantastic job at it, where they are just posting little art pieces and things like that. But I solely think that's just because they can't get players to want to do anything. They can't get players to do anything outside of, like, play their match. And it's always going to be my biggest pet peeve. It's actually one of the conditions I have when I join an org is, are your players content ready? If they're not, then understand that I'm not going to be the most excited working with you. But if they are, you will get 110% with me.
Yeah, and who was the OWCS team that had the awful like was it VP that had the awful like
Oh yeah,
the AI.
the terrible highlight, like
Yeah.
the what was it?
like
I'll find it. but I know what you're talking about.
team in the fucking world at the moment.
Partner team.
Worst fucking like
Yeah.
hype video for your team. Like you're getting like, and also yeah, Hunter brings up the good point there. They're a partner team. They're getting more monetary value out of this than a lot of other teams in the world.
Yeah, I found it crazy too because I've worked with Virtuous Pro before they were Virtuous Pro, the Overwatch team at the very least. I'd worked with Laggy directly. I'd worked on highlights, things like that. So, and I had my edit highlight, which was a practice one, posted to their Twitter, and I just sat there so insulted, like as an editor, but then as someone who has worked with them technically, like you guys spent 10 minutes maybe in Blender, moved the camera, and said, "Our budget is blown, guys. Render it."
No,
I came into
I'll say
the budget we
it's
had was
not-
$2.
it's not hard to make something basic. It is not that
No,
hard.
it-
Yes, there are a lot of intricacies of editing. I'm not saying anyone could just pick it up and make a
Yeah.
masterpiece, but it is not hard to go into Overwatch and go free cam and record some stuff and make something cool. I've done it. It's not that difficult to make something that is simple, that is basic, that you can just put out there, and it's like, all right, that's fair. I will not rant on this, but like,
No.
come on.
Yeah.
Gotta
No,
do better, especially as a partner team. Like, if that was like Miku's fan club, like no one would have cared. Nobody would have even batted.
No,
an
it's
eye.
expectation. It's also like respect to the community of you're doing this. And mind you, Virtuous had not shown respect to the Overwatch community at that point. They had like post tweets where they just did not understand Overwatch, or like the infamous 20 kill win streak that they posted. I remember that.
Oh my god.
Yeah, exactly. And then they do that. They don't have a good reputation in the Overwatch community. So that was just like a spit on the face.
I will give them credit though. They're getting better with it. I mean, they truly only picked up a team for EWC last year, kept it through the final stage, then got partnered because, it's strangely enough, EU was a region where no team really wanted to join. I mean, hell, you have Gen G, who I'm surprised are an EU one, but they're there, and then what? TM's the other one.
I want to say yeah, but that's mostly because of Saudi money. At least behind doors of conversation of what I've heard, it really is because of that.
Yeah. Which...
Like, it's one of the reasons why EXO has taken a break from Overwatch is we don't really have the budget, things like that. That's why our Marvel Rivals team is literally just a friend team. It's a team that one of our managers we signed, and then that's kind of it. That's like EXO right now.
Found the Virtus Pro video, by the way. Off topic, but
do I want to watch this again?
Yeah, of course. It's a masterpiece.
Absolutely, yeah.
Here,
someone really put the AD to work on their keyboard.
Here,
that's all I gotta say.
Let me.
And like, it makes me feel so bad because I love Laggy, and I think Laggy is Virtuous Pro's manager right now. I don't know if they actually like signed, even though they do it.
Let's get the play-by-play on this. Look at this. Look at this.
3.
Look at this masterpiece.
4. There's 4 TPS right there. There was never a single support.
I remember going on showing this to my girlfriend, and I went frame by frame, and I just ranted like, "What are they looking at? What are they trying to tell here? This is King's Row, and they just have like a couple characters really lost, and then Diva on her phone. What is the point of this?"
And I don't get this giant Tracer statue either.
I don't know, that has to be custom made because I've never seen a model of that either.
It looks like a Funko version.
I was gonna say this is just a Funko.
It looks like a Funko. It looks like one of those other like. It looks like one of those other like off-brand Funko vinyl producers.
They 3D printed it, their Funko Pop.
That's
just
crazy.
To get it in.
I mean, yeah, give them an A for effort, but a fucking F for everything else in that thing, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't even know. I don't even know about the A for effort. Man.
Okay, average it out to a C- for effort.
Well, let's forget we ever brought up that thing.
No. If they fucking win stage 1, we need them to remake that with an actual fucking budget.
I need an apology.
The scary part is that that's not a 0% chance.
Yeah.
I don't think it is. That's for a whole different podcast that doesn't exist. Actually, it probably does somewhere. It does. It's called
Plat Chat.
Plat Chat. It's
yeah,
called
we're
Plat
not.
Chat.
I'm not afraid to fucking name drop other podcasts on this one here.
That was me like legit trying to think of a podcast, and I'm like, oh, literally Plat Chat. Why can't I remember the simplest name for a podcast?
Unknowable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't that involve Europeans though?
It involves probably our favorite European.
Yeah, I guess. Depends who you ask.
Yeah, fair enough. But okay. I mean, I wish more players would get out there and actually do stuff, because like you said, the ones that do, you start to see a personality, and you can separate the player and personality, and they are incredible. And
we're also just more likely to sign you.
Yeah. Like,
same with like content creators. I've gone out of my way of like going to orgs to be like, hey, can we sign this caster as a content creator or this player because they're just really funny?
How often do they say yes? Let's ask that question.
Very rarely. Orgs are very picky with who are they going to bring in, because it's like, do you bring in actual numbers or are you just a friend of the person?
If an org ever reached out to me and said, "Hey, we can't pay you," I would say yeah. Just give me a shirt, give me a jersey. That's it.
Yeah.
I'll make 4 things of content with you, and then if you want anything else, fuck yeah, man, I'm down.
Ooh.
But I mean, now getting back to what you do with editing, what is like the one thing that like, and Hunter kind of touched on it here, like there is a definite learning curve and a big one getting into it very early on. It's not just like, it's not like with casting where it's like, hey, I bet you I can do better than them. You come in and then, you know, you figure out you're not and you work at it
Yeah.
and you're, you know, better than what was there. But when you first got into it, what was like the hardest thing that you had to really grasp with editing?
I think it was learning what actual editing is, because there's tiers to it. And I was on the basic tier, where like I only knew Adobe because of school. I was in film class. I originally like used Sony Vegas, and that's like all I knew. So I was learning that, and it's, oh, I know how to put things together and make them look relatively nice. But then it's, okay, but do you know sound beating? Do you know color grading? Do you know why this shot looks really good with this shot? Do you know why we cut out this like dead scene where no one's talking for a couple seconds and then cut it in? And that was like the most whiplash I had ever been, especially with copyright, because you can get a lot of really good ideas and a lot of really funny ideas, but are they copyrighted? Are you using an anime thing, which a lot of the times I was. So if I'm using something copyrighted, it's my own personal project. It's something that I want to do and have fun with, and it's always going to be that whiplash. Like if I had to, like if an editor came up to me and said, "Hi, I want to get into like tier 2, tier 1 editing. How do I find my start?" It's make things and make them a lot, and then send them to people. And no matter if you like them or not, get their opinion on it. Someone is going to tell you, well, I think this sheen doesn't work. I don't like how this sounds. Oh, I have sensitive hearing. This maybe be too loud. You will learn from like every instance and every opinion that you are working with someone. And it's one of my, I think something I've grown to love with working with people, and something that I'm actively like always looking for when I'm editing is, hey, what do you think about this? Does this sound too loud? Do you like how the scene works? Does the message I'm getting out of editing this get? And maybe that's just because more I'm a narrative editor. I'm not someone who's looking to make something flashy.
Mhm.
Like if I like my total opposite, I would say, is like Vengeance editor, who was used to be the editor for NTMR, was insanely good at making things look visually nice, but can also do narrative things. I'm more of a person whose main focus is narrative things, but I could make things look nice.
Yeah. But I mean, just continuing on with that entire thing right there. After like how long have you been at editing? Like that's been like your full-time thing. How many years now?
Full time, I would say I've been in esports for 4 years. I was editing for about 2, so I'd say 2 years, 2 to 3 years. I've been editing relatively full time.
What what's like what's something like right now you learned that seems very very like complex or simple now, but starting when you started was something that was like, I'm never gonna be able to understand how to do this, but now it's like, oh wait, yeah, I know exactly what I want to do with this.
Angles, understanding transition angles. Uh, you could be the master at recording films, things like that, of having footage ready, but some things will just always feel off. You'll never understand why until you just put that left to right transition angle or that zoom in, and everything feels perfect. Because once you understand that some things just don't naturally work well alone, it just saves your life.
Yeah, and I mean like angles is a like with some of the stuff that I do with just basic graphic design, like angles are something have been really focusing on as well. It's like, you know, I want this all to look good. Yeah, it's gonna be a flat image, but you still want to have some depth to it. But a lot of times, like,
Yeah.
you can't just have like, oh yeah, here's a drop shadow that I just blurred a little bit. No, you need to make sure everything kind of makes sense with how everything's going with it there. Um, Here, what was your favorite? What is to date right now your favorite piece you worked with? It could be a video. It could be, you know, you worked with this org, or like what was your favorite thing that you have done?
My favorite piece. I'm actually pretty confident about this. I worked with college esports for a tiny bit because I wanted to do more editing freelance and get a sense. I was working with he was the content director. I was working with him directly. It was the college esports rebrand. They had pinged me, they had personally picked me out, and they said, "Hey, do you want to edit our rebrand video from start to scratch? Here's the footage, here's the idea, boom." And I absolutely did it. I absolutely loved it to death, and I got to work directly with someone who was tier one. I think he's the creative direct Jukebox, the creative director for like Atlanta, who used to be the Atlanta Reign.
Mhm.
And I got to edit that entire video. I got to use After Effects, which I rarely ever touch. And it was like by far my proudest moment where I felt like, you know what? I can get criticism. I can take it. I can work hard. I think I can make it like work more into tier one.
Yeah. I did you post it on your own Twitter? Or
Uh, no, that was posted to the college
Mhm.
esports, but I did retweet it. But that's in my portfolio, like on my and I put it in the chat just so like you can see.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's like by far my proudest video, and it's nothing complex. It's nothing insane, but it's fundamentally where um I had to learn transition. I had to learn the angle of what I was looking for in a video and what the intention was meant to be.
I'll definitely make sure to link your portfolio so people can look and see everything that you've done here because there is a decent amount as well. But just before we sign off here, there's the small chance with BlizzCon coming back that OWCS is coming back or OW World Cup. My bad, World Cup is coming back. Have you had any talks with fuck, it was Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah.
Has there been like any in like small talks with anyone that you worked with there saying, "Hey, if this comes back, are you getting the entire band back together?"
Not directly.
Mhm.
The guy who was the social director running everything at Monocolo, uh absolutely love the guy to death. Is one of my favorite people to work with when it comes to Overwatch content because he's just so like create creative and loud about it.
Mhm.
But anytime I post about it, he's right there. He's the first person to like it. So I think it's like nod winks. We always talk about Puerto Rico teams and how Puerto Rico is represented in the Overwatch community and things like that. So if OWCS comes back, I know we're ready to jump right back on the train.
Yeah, and I hope it comes back. I hope it comes back in that format because yeah, there's the EWC, but I look at that as the club version of it, and it is the club version of it. But I think having the World Cup or whatever the hell if it does come back, what they're gonna probably have to rebrand it to. I think it's just a fun thing for the community as a whole because it still shows like, hey, there's these players in these countries that are like still very passionate about this game, and I mean, hell, we've seen the U.S. win it. We saw Saudi Arabia win it. Have we seen South Korea win it yet?
Not in a while.
Multiple times, but it has been a long time.
Yeah.
Like, I hope it comes back just so we get to see
Yeah.
those nation teams again.
I agree, but also because Overwatch has always just been a game about connecting and like your hero's origins and all that, and getting to see yourself represented in game. And so, each team, like Overwatch, like World Cup Peru, World Cup United States, you get that sense, and you kind of get to be your own stereotype of your org and have a lot of fun with it, which is my favorite part. Because you could just start yelling "Raw Eagles USA" or "The British have the tea," and while you can't always make like I got so many projects rejected on Team Puerto Rico because a lot of them were just making fun of the USA.
Perfectly fair.
And at times it became political, and Mano was like, "We can't really do that. We shouldn't make it political." And I was like, "Well, fine, whatever." It's some shorts you can find on the TikTok are borderline where I'm just harassing only the U.S. and Mexico. because Mexico is Spanish, and the United States for very obvious reasons. That's one of my favorite things, and so that's why I hope it comes back because I want to be able to make those more memes, and that's what I find so boring about kind of Overwatch right now is obviously yes, going out of like central branding is much better for the long term and all that, but players are already just gonna swap around. So outside of like org history, and there's not many orgs that are like staying in long enough to build that history. What are you making fun of? What jokes are we having outside of like players? Where's the team that is known for sandbagging or like throwing a map? What can I make fun of you for? What can I make content out of essentially?
Yeah, and I mean, even right now with OWCS, you are still seeing like those memes that have been around forever and ever. Like, hey, NRG Shock was there. We always had what, the lose control map meme.
Yeah.
Like, hey, they brought it back, and it always fucking happened. They're gone.
And it
which
makes me so happy, but it's such a like dime a dozen of an org that like has been in the Overwatch scene for so long that they have a name. At least when you go into like World Cup, you have the jokes already prepared, and it is my favorite thing. It was the same thing with Overwatch League. Jokes were built on, but you also had jokes that you could make fun of people for.
Yeah, absolutely. Which again, it's still in its infancy here, but we're not at that point yet with OWCS, which does suck. But I feel like we're not that far away. I think with the 3 majors now, I think we're gonna have a lot more opportunities for jokes to come from them with the players actually all being on stage.
Yeah, I'm really hoping because as much as I love seeing Overwatch and the Overwatch social team is absolutely fantastic. Dwibble, and Haley are absolutely fantastic with what they post, especially like when Rich Rad was on and Kenobi, they had pictures, they had memes made of them like as it was going on, and they continue doing that with different streams, and I absolutely love it. I'd love to see players get in on that, and that just goes back to like player content.
Yeah, and like I remember, what it was Rack Attack's photo, from the World Championships last year, where it was him just doing that fucking like Wojak meme point. That was the photo that was behind him at all points during the last 2 days. I was like, yeah, he understood the incitement of like, hey, they're here to have fun, or at least have fun with that. Yeah. But you know, before we get going here, y'all, Hunter, Mega, is there anything that you guys specifically want to ask a user about?
I'm not gonna lie. I've had to pee for like 10 minutes, so I just don't have anything.
It's so fair.
Perfectly fair.
That is honestly a really good point, Megalass. That is entirely fair.
Hunter, do you have anything?
Oh God. I don't know if I specifically have a question. Oh no. I'm not great at questions. I'm great at answers, not good at questions though.
Oh yeah, what's 300 times 74?
Shit.
Are we all
no
thinking
answers.
it?
Well, why are you all doing the math?
Yeah.
Get hobbies, I beg of you.
He's typing.
Don't do the math. Don't. I see you doing the math.
By the way, the answer is I think it's 22,200.
It's 20.
It's 22,300.
Yeah.
All right, cheaters.
I was literally like writing it out on my fucking notes.
That's crazy. It's all in the brain. You know what? I don't have questions. So UserIntel, why don't you ask a question? All right. I mean, you've been just answering things the entire time. Where's your question?
You know,
huh?
are you guys ready for when certain people are putting out messages because I'm starting to see people wanting to do more caster content, especially like OBS Sojourn. She tweeted something out, but then she pushed it because she's working. But I know I don't know for a fact, but I'm pretty sure she's working on ideas to involve casters in her things. Are you guys ready to like throw yourselves into that when that opportunity arrives?
I'm right here. I'm always ready.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming because I remember when they posted, because originally I think it was Overwatch Pacific, region wasn't going to get casted in English class, and like OBS Sojourn posted about like, hey, looking for like a bunch of like producers and casters, and I would hazard to guess all three of us decided to throw a hat into that ring because I mean that's just a fun opportunity, whether anything happened from it or not, which obviously it didn't because they decided, hey, maybe we should actually cover these things with an English broadcast. That's a fun idea, but
yeah, I definitely remember throwing my hat into the ring with the Pacific casting, and then Joker jumped on and said, "Hey, we could duo this." I think OBS Sojourn responded, or at least liked the post.
Yeah, she's pretty out there. I know like eventually she's gonna I'll be working with her. We've talked about it in DMs and all that. So if the opportunity arrives, I know for a fact I'm gonna be trying to repitch that caster stuff because that's something that like immediately interested in me.
Yeah, like I think with most casters though, just to answer your question, is like I think it would be pretty dumb for us it would be pretty dumb for any like grassroots tier 2, 3, whatever tiers are now to say no to an opportunity, especially coming from someone like OBS Sojourn, who is huge when it comes to at least doing stuff in the Overwatch community. Like it would just be kind of idiotic to say no.
Yeah, 100% would be. So you just got to take the opportunities when they present themselves. There's no reason in the world not to.
Yeah. All right, but I think right then and there is the perfect time to kind of wrap up this episode. User, I want to thank you for coming on and being the guest this week, man. It was a great insight on everything you do, and I think you let out a little bit of anger there when we talked about players not wanting to do stuff, which, hey, perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. And it's something that always needs to be said even more. The players, please fucking do stuff. It is so fun when you do stuff outside of your game. But yeah, that will do it for us this week on this episode of For the Love of Prod. Join us next week when, again, no idea who it will be. But Hunter, Mega, thank you guys. User, again, thank you one more time. But that will do it for us this week. I'll see y'all next week with another episode.